Okay, so this video is going to be a review slash recap slash theory crafting of the prologue for Book 4 in the Stormlight Archive, The Rhythm of War. This is going to be extremely spoiler heavy for the entire series. So if you are not completely caught up to the most current point, do not watch any more of this video. So now with that warning out of the way, let's do a quick recap of the prologue. And also, I should mention this. For those that aren't aware, Brandon Sanderson, the author of the book, is releasing chapters all the way up weekly. He's releasing chapters weekly up until the release of the book, which is November. I can't remember the exact date, but it's sometime in November. And even though I'm so excited for it, I don't even know what day it comes out. But he's subsequently releasing chapters each week until the release of the book. And I think it'll get you all the way up through part 1. Now, in The Way of Kings, we have the scene of the prologue as the banquet where Gavilar is going to sign a peace treaty with the Parshendi, and then Gavilar is assassinated. And we get this from the perspective of Szeth, the assassin in white. And then in Book 2, we get a little more insight into this night and the real gravity of it, because we get the perspective of Yasna, of what was going on that night, how she was going to hire an assassin to kill Aesidon, or at least protect her family, how she was starting to bond with her spren even at that point. And that was very interesting. And then in Oathbringer, the third book, we get the perspective of that night from Ishonai, one of the Parshendi. And then we start to see the scope grow even more of what was going on that night, where Gavilar is like, hey, look, I'm going to bring your gods back. So this is going to be pretty sweet. We're going to finish the fight that we started 4,000 years ago. And Ishonai's like, look, no, don't do that, bro, because we kind of don't want our gods coming back. Gavilar's like, hey, well, that's kind of tough. Sometimes you got to risk it to get the biscuit, and my kingdom needs something united on, so yeah, I'm bringing back an enemy to fight. And so then Ishonai runs off, goes and visits the elders of the Parshendi, and is like, we need to assassinate this guy, right? And they're like, yeah, I think we gotta kill him. And so then they hire Szeth to kill him, and then we find out that Odium was actually kind of whispering in their ear. Maybe. That's still kind of like, we don't know who, but there's some extra stuff going on with that. But anyway, now we get to see even more insight into this night. And this time we see the perspective of Navani. And she's basically having to take care of everything at the party. Gavilar is not doing anything. It's his banquet and he's nowhere to be found. No one in the family is helping out. Elhokar is kind of shrugging his duties. Aesidon is not doing her thing. So Navani's got to take care of everything. She's got to make sure everyone's fed, got to make sure everything's running smoothly in the kitchen, got to greet all the guests, blah, 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 blah. It's frustrating for her, and she's just kind of like, she just feels like a glorified housekeeper, really. And she has all these ambitions, but she's stuck doing all the dirty work. Finally, she gets fed up and she's like, okay, Gavilar, where are you at? This is your thing. You invited all these important people here. Where are you? And this is where things get interesting. She realizes that he is speaking with, and she doesn't know who these people are, but 2 mysterious guys. Ambassadors from the West, I think, is how they're referred. It's very evident that these are actually 2 of the heralds. We know for sure that Nail is one of them. And the other one, I've seen people theorize that it's Kellic, the herald Kellic. And that's basically based off of process of elimination. I'm kind of taking people's word for that, because it doesn't actually name them in this, in the text here. And then basically she's eavesdropping on them. They're talking about some really crazy stuff. There's these weird spheres on the table with weird stormlight and void light in them, and Navani doesn't know what the heck is going on. And she basically comes in and is like, hey, honey, we gotta deal with this party that you planned, instead of hiding back here. And he's like, all right, look, gentlemen, I gotta, take care of this, so we'll talk later. And they're like, probably not. I don't think we will talk later. And then you get some insight into their relationship and how broken their marriage really is. Because obviously now we know that years later, Navani marries Dalinar, and that she's had feelings for him the whole time, Gavilar's brother. So it's always been kind of weird and taboo, and you're like, I'm rooting for these 2 as a couple, but it's also still like, the context of their relationship is kind of sketchy. But then when you get to see what the marriage Navani had with Gavilar had become, you start to feel a little bit for Navani, because basically he's abusive. Not like physically abusive. And the text even makes sure to like point that out specifically, that he never like raised a hand to her, but he was kind of like manipulative. He would do threats. He just wasn't, by the end of his life, their marriage had deteriorated to the point where it was basically non-existent. she's kind of asking him like, hey, what are you guys talking about? What is this? And they kind of have a little bit of a fight. And then she is frustrated and she burns a prayer basically asking Honor, who coincidentally or ironically is dead, but she doesn't know that. She makes a prayer that God would kill him. And then she immediately regrets it. She's got shame spraying all around her. And then, as fate would have it, Gavilar dies that night. And now Navani has that guilt just draped over her for the rest of her life. And that's a quick little recap. Now I want to dive into some details here. And the way I kind of want to do this is I'm going to pick out some interesting quotes and then kind of extrapolate from there. And, because I just want to talk about the ramifications of what some of this stuff could mean. So let's go into the quotes here. Okay, so the first half of the prologue was kind of boring to me. It was just Navani wandering around doing work and telling her daughter-in-law to do work. But then once she started talking to once Gavilar came into the scene, it got super interesting. So that's kind of where I want to start with these quotes. And I'm just going to read verbatim. If you're wondering what I'm looking at my computer screen off to the side here. So, the king was speaking with two men that Navani vaguely recognized. A tall Makabaki man with a birthmark on his cheek, and a shorter Vorin man with a round face and a small nose. And we think that that's Nail and Kellic. They had been called ambassadors from the West, but no kingdom had been given for their home. So this is extremely interesting because in the interlude, or not the interlude, in the prologue from Yasna's perspective, we already kind of see that there were heralds here this night, which means this has to be some kind of momentous occasion that goes far beyond just a peace treaty between two people groups. There's something much bigger at play here. And so we start to see that Gavilar is a little bit more aware of some meta stuff here than we were led to believe early on. So let's break it down even a little bit further. As Navani is eavesdropping on him, this is what she hears. And keep in mind, it's like Navani doesn't have any clue like what this stuff means. And so here's the quote. And this is Nail talking. Being able to bring them back and forth from Braze doesn't mean anything, one said. It's too close to be a relevant distance. This is them bringing up Braze. And so a little bit of context here. Braze is actually a planet. Okay, so to give a quick breakdown, here we have like the sun, and then we have a planet here called Ashen, which is where humanity originally came from, and then came to Roshar because they destroyed their own planet. Then we've got Roshar, where they retreated to. And then we have Braze, which is far, cold. It's basically hell, but not hot. And so this is the planet where the Voidbringers go, where the Heralds go and are tortured by the Voidbringer, well, they're not actually the Voidbringers, but by, as we know now, but by the Fused, and where they're locked at, and how the Desolations would recycle. And so the Heralds are sitting here talking about it, and then the next quote, coming from Gavilar, goes like this. It was impossible only a few short years ago, said a deep, powerful voice. So more like, it was impossible only a few short years ago, said a deep, powerful voice, Gavilar. This is proof. The connection is not severed, and the box allows for travel. Not yet as far as you'd like, but we must start the journey somewhere. And so we have this mysterious box now all of a sudden. And I can only speculate on what that is. I have absolutely no clue. But apparently Gavilar has found some magic box that allows them to teleport between planets. Not only does Gavilar know the Heralds personally and hold court with them, but he also is trying to get them on his team because he's figured out a way to travel between planets. And he kind of it also shows that he has an understanding of what Braze even is. Because Nail tosses out the word Braze, and Gavilar gets it. The conversation is getting extremely interesting, but then Gavilar notices that Navani is eavesdropping on him. She doesn't make any sound or anything. He just all of a sudden knows that she's there, which is kind of weird. And I don't know if that means anything or if I'm reading too much into it. So there might be something there. It might be nothing at all. Who knows? So then the conversation gets kind of broken up. And Navani's like, hey, look, honey, we got to take care of this party. Gavilar is like, all right, look, boys, let's take a break. We can talk later. And this is another quote I want to dive into. The nervous Vorin man ran his hand through his wispy hair. I want to know more of the project, Gavilar. Plus, you need to know that another one of us is here tonight. I spotted her handiwork earlier. And this is talking about Ash. And we knew this from Yasna's. I think we knew it from all of the prologues, actually. Once we start connecting the dots a little bit. But because her statue or her sculpture has her face like slashed out. Because for whatever reason, Ash hates people knowing what her face looks like. Oh, maybe it's a Lightweaver thing. Who knows? So it's really clear that Gavilar knows all about the Heralds, more than just Kellic and Nail. So anyway, I thought that was kind of cool. And then Gavilar says this. I have a meeting shortly with Meridas and the others, Meridas meaning Amaram, the scumbag. They should have more information for me. We can speak again after that. And then Nail is like, no, I doubt we shall. There's more here, Nail, the Vorin man said, though he followed as his friend left. This is important. I want out. This is the only way, ... And then they kind of scramble and leave. This dude is sounding desperate, like he needs a way out, like he's done. Like, these dudes are just living here with the shame and guilt of having betrayed their friend. I don't know exactly what they're sitting here plotting. We know that Gavilar was plotting to bring the Desolations back, obviously. But we also know that Nail was trying to stop it from coming back, because he was out there killing all the Radiants before they could bond, trying to prevent the next Desolation. It seems like they're at odds, because we're only getting bits and pieces. And Brandon Sanderson is great at this. Like, this is one of the things he's fantastic at, is giving you just enough so that you have a little inkling of what's going on, but you don't see the full picture. And so we see that Nail doesn't want this to happen, but the other Herald does. He's like, no, we need to hear Gavilar out, because I'm tired of this, Nail. I'm tired of being here for 4,000 years. I don't know if he's bored. I don't know if he just has the shame or the guilt or whatever it is, but he's like, I need a way out, Nail. I need this. I think this is a good sign to see that we're going to start getting into that a lot more. I feel like the first book was learning about the world. The second book, we start to learn about the Radiants specifically. And then we get to see the Radiants grow in the third book, and the Heralds kind of coming back in ever so slowly. And now I think we're going to get into the Heralds even a bit more and kind of get to the next level. And so I'm excited about that. And now let's get back to Navani here. So Navani is like, hey, Gavilar, why are you shutting me out? Like, what's going on? He basically is just like, he's really cold toward her, and he's like, if you had any idea the magnitude of what I'm setting into motion, like, it would blow your mind. And she's just like, well, why don't you tell me what it is? Why do you shut me out? And he's like, look, you really want to know why I don't include you in this? Navani, you're a nobody. You're not special. He basically calls her a Jersey chaser. He's like, You try to be this incredible, like, Artifabrian, but all you do is hang around the good Artifabrians. You chose me as your husband because you knew that's where the power was. You became queen because of me, not because of you. You just chase on the coattails of powerful people. You don't do anything yourself. And you couldn't fathom the stuff that I'm doing right now. You're sitting here wanting me to go talk to these jabronis about where to draw lines on a map. I'm sitting here talking about traveling between planets, about bringing upon the whole world a desolation that hasn't been seen for thousands of years. And you want me to go talk to these guys about a land dispute? It's like, I'm past that, Navani. You're down here, okay? I'm way past this. And she doesn't take that well, to say the least. And they get into another fight, and he starts talking about his legacy, and she's like, look, your legacy is going to be your children. It's going to be me writing your biography or whatever. It's going to be the people that love you. Yasna, Adolin, Dalinar, Renarin, Elokar. And then, and here's another quote I want to throw out, because I'm loving that we're seeing all of this insight into who Gavilar was by the end of his life. We've always seen him as like this honorable king, and now we're finally getting into a glimpse of his dark side, which is really kind of interesting. Treat them with care. They will define how you're remembered. And then Gavilar snaps back with, greatness will define me, Navani. No mediocre effort by someone like Dalinar or my son could undermine that. And I personally doubt Elokar could even rise to mediocre. And so he's just sitting here hating on his own son, because he realizes my son isn't going to be able to carry this kingdom on. Like, he's not good enough. And so you see this pride coming from Gavilar and this sort of a lack of respect for his own children, because he even has, or I didn't mention it in this video, but he talks about Yasna kind of low. He's like, Yasna is being a total beezy. She's trying to become famous by being an atheist, and she refuses to marry Amaram. It's like, she's got to fall in line. And so he doesn't have much respect for his kids. And then he continues on talking about his legacy. This is Gavilar talking to Navani. You went where the money and the power would be greatest, Gavilar said, like any common whore. Write whatever you want about me. Say it, shout it, proclaim it. I'll outlive your accusations, and my legacy will persist. I have discovered the entrance to the realm of gods and legends, and once I join them, my kingdom will never end. I will never end. And I was just like, dang, it's like, okay, this fool is really playing he's laying his cards out and saying, it's like, I'm trying to shoot the moon here. I'm swinging for the fences, Navani. He's basically saying, I'm gonna be immortal. He's going for immortality, like some type of godhood. And of course, the irony is that he dies like in 20 minutes from now, right? And so he's sitting here talking about how he will never die, and then he dies. I'm just like, what does Gavilar know? Like, how much does he know? Because I don't know if it was confirmed in the books or if this was just Brandon Sanderson saying it, but either way, it's confirmed that the Stormfather was giving Gavilar these visions that he gave Dalinar, talking about unite them and blah, blah, blah. And so we know that he knew stuff was going on, but we just don't know to what extent. And here, because of this prologue, I'm starting to think the extent of where Gavilar was at is even probably past where we are at now. Probably more than Dalinar even knows now. 8-9 years later, after the desolation has even come. It seems like Gavilar was still ahead of the curve. It seems like, okay, if we're going to do a prologue of the same event over and over and over and over, it's going to get boring. But actually, I'm constantly impressed with how much new info we get with each retelling of this exact same scenario. I'm already waiting for the 5th book to just read the prologue out of that. But one little mini prediction I have, and I could be totally off, but I want to put it out here in the public so that if it, on the off chance that it is true, I can come back and point to this and say, I told you so. But I think that we haven't seen the last of Gavilar. I mean, I know that he's been dead, right, for 8 years or however long, but I feel like in this world, this is a fantasy world where we have different realms. We have the spiritual realm and the cognitive realm and the physical realm, and sometimes they intermingle. And then if stuff from the other Cosmere books, I won't go into specifics because I don't want to spoil anything, but sometimes when people are dead, they're not really fully dead. And so I'm betting that we're going to see Gavilar again in some way. Maybe he'll be Odium's champion now that he can't have Dalinar or something. I don't know. Because now we're getting into the realm of gods. And we're getting into the conversation of the shards of Adonalsium. And the more, as I sit here and talk about this stuff, I'm like, man, if I was just to go talk to random strangers and be busting out vocabulary like Adonalsium and all the, just all these geeky nerd words that I'm talking about in this story, they'd be like, who is this dude? Even some of my close friends, if I started talking like this, they'd be like, what happened to you, man? But anyway, I get excited about it. I'm sitting here by myself in my room talking to my iPhone, and I'm getting excited about it. But yeah, okay, so that's all for this video. I try to keep this video shorter than the previous one, and I'm going to try to chop them down even more, but I'm not great at it because when I get going, I just go. I ramble and I rabbit trail, and then eventually I lose what my point was to even begin with. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll just stop here, I guess. So I'll just stop here, I guess. That's it for this video. I'm going to try to do a review for each of the sequences going forward. Prologue, Chapter 1, Chapter 2, Chapter 3, up until the release of the book. And then I'll read the whole book and then do a review of the whole book. But I'm excited about getting involved in the booktube community and being able to have people to actually talk about this stuff with, aside from my friends who I keep pestering to read the books. Because I'm like, hey, I need to talk to people. I need people to talk to. But I have successfully gotten 2 friends to read it. So not to brag, but anyway, so that's it for this one. Thank you all for watching. Please comment whatever discussion and interesting thoughts you had about what's going on here or theories you have moving forward, because I want to talk about it. So anyway, thanks for tuning in, guys. I'll see you next time. Peace.